Good morning. This meeting is called to order. Welcome to the July 17th, 2023 El Paso County Commissioner Redistricting Commission meeting. I'm Cammie Brimmer, and I'm a County Commissioner from District 5. I'm grateful to be in our district today. And as resident commissioner of this district, I'd like to welcome you to our final listening session of the Redistricting Commission. Today, we're pleased to be here at the Pikes Peak Regional Development Center, which is in my district, as I said. It's also a joint effort between us and the city of Colorado Springs. In accordance with the statute that established the commissioner redistricting process, we do have one listening session in each district. And an important part of the meeting is to solicit the feedback of those of you here. And you'll notice on our agenda that we will take that feedback and comments from the public. And in order that, because we're today here in District 5, we will take residents of Commissioner District 5 first, and then we will move to other El Paso County residents, and then any residents who might not be, people who might have comments but are not residents of El Paso County. And you'll see our agenda structured in that way. To begin the meeting, I'd like to invite my fellow commissioners to make any opening remarks. Are there any opening remarks from my colleagues? Commissioner Van Der Werf.
Thank you. Just make sure this mic is working. Let's see. There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to welcome everybody to this, just as our chair just did. And thank you for the continued input from folks all over the county. That's awesome. Do appreciate it. And I just want everyone to know, and I know some of you may beg to differ on this, maybe one way or another, but we are listening. I really believe that we are. I see the commissioners looking at the inputs, the write-ups, the stuff on the website, the maps, and intentionally listening to the citizens that are providing testimony and commentary about what they think should be done with the redistricting. So I do appreciate everyone's input. And just a quick reminder, don't forget this week, the El Paso County Fair is ongoing. If you haven't been out there, you need to go out there because it is a ton of fun. I've spent the last couple days there at different events, and I just highly would recommend that you take the opportunity to go see what's going on out at the county fair. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanderwerf. I also wanted to point out that that we do have statutory requirements and considerations, and so as we move into that public comment period, we look forward to hearing residents address your district's communities of interest, political competitiveness, and the maps under consideration. Okay, with that, we are on to item number 3.
Item number 3.
Item number 2.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 2, upcoming meetings, recommendations, and general updates. Ryan Parcell, Executive Director, Government Affairs.
All right, good morning. See which of these work here. Okay, so in normal process here, we'll go through subsequent redistricting meeting dates, next steps to outline what we will be doing after today's meeting, and then go over our deadline status. So, as we discussed in the last redistricting meeting, we have these dates on hold for future commissioner redistricting meeting dates. So Thursday, July 27th, Wednesday, August 2nd, and Friday, August 4th at 5:30 p.m., 1 p.m., and 9 a.m. respectively. The asterisk is there on the 27th, only because we know that there's one commission member who can't attend, and so just need to work through if that person is comfortable moving forward with the meeting without them. And then August 8th and August 15th, both of those meetings are at 1 p.m. I would notate the time change on that. At the previous meeting, we'd announced a 1 p.m. time change for the August 15th, but now that is in place for the August 8th as well. And all subsequent meetings will be held at Centennial Hall, which is 200 South Cascade Avenue, next to the Pikes Peak Center in downtown Colorado Springs. So when it comes to the next steps, I wanted to bring this up at this point to help inform any discussion today. So at the August 8th meeting, that's when we will vote to designate 3 to 4 finalist maps. And then that allows public input on the finalist maps to occur during the next week, as well as in person at the following meeting. But the idea is that when you designate 3 to 4 finalist maps, those are the maps that are substantially complete, don't need any additional direction, and that the final map that you guys would adopt would be out of those 3 to 4 maps. So there will be a period of time between this meeting today and whenever our next meeting is. And so one thing that we would recommend is that you consider giving us direction that any citizen maps that we receive that are complete enough to do so, that we run the analysis so we have that ready to present without asking for direction at the following meeting to run that analysis. So with the conclusion of today's meeting, we will have met the August 4th deadline to have all 5 public hearings, 1 in each commissioner district. The website is still open through July 21st for members of the public to submit plans via the website. And there were some questions last time about that deadline. I would say that if we're having a meeting in the last part of July, having some time between when that cutoff occurs and having the time to run any analysis on any additional plans is helpful. And then August 8th is the deadline for any additional plans by the Redistricting Commission. August 11th is the last day for written public comment. Then August 15th is the proposed date for final adoption, which again, on that date, there is the time frame between written and verbal comments. Verbal comments can still be made on August 15th. So with that in mind, are there any questions for me?
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On that, if you might go back to the last chart, there we go. The August 11 date, the last date for written public comments on proposals. I just want to, I think what that means is, let's say, for example, the Esri tool, because they can provide comments, I believe, in there as well. So does that mean that the submit button just gets pulled, but the Esri tool, which displays the maps, remains available to the public? It's kind of, I'm just asking the nuance about what stays open, what stays available, and what gets closed after August 11.
That's a good question. If I may, sir, my interpretation has been that July 21st, 2023 would be the last day that somebody would be able to use the Esri tool. But if somebody's got general comments about which of the finalist maps that they want to adopt or anything like that, that can be done through August 11th. I will say, for the purposes of this, when we initially set these deadlines, we weren't sure how much time it's going to take to compile any website comments. I think if you guys wanted to, you could extend the August 11th deadline out by a couple of days. I'm the one that compiles the comments and presents them to you guys. So if you wanted to, we could keep that open.
If I might then, it kind of, the follow-up to that question, if we go back to the other chart, I think it's the 21st of July you were stating about submit plans via the website. So what happens to the Esri tool on the 21st? In other words, does the submit button get closed, but the Esri tool remains available for people to view the existing maps? The point is just wanting to know, does there continue to be an Esri tool reference that citizens can just still at least view?
Yeah, to be honest with you, when it comes to whether or not the button shuts off or something like that, that's a little bit more technical than my expertise allows. But some form or fashion, we could either, leave it on and let people use the tool. I can look at having the submit button just turned off or something like that, or we can continue to accept them but just not enter them into the public record or something like that.
Thank you. It does make sense to me to just have the maps continue to be available even if the public cannot submit anything via that website on that date. So if that's possible to do, I think that would be a good idea. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good comments. I think if we're going to leave the tool and ability to recreate new maps open, I would like a very clear statement of the deadlines and the considerations, just open and transparent, so that someone who is perhaps creating a new map and assumes it will be submitted to be considered, that the deadline for that has already passed. I want it to be very, very clear. I don't have a problem with leaving the Esri tool open, really so that people can see all the detail of the proposed maps that are already on the table. But I would like it to be clear that after a certain date, those cannot be submitted and considered. Commissioner Williams.
Okay, we're on there. If I could state for something for the clerk and the clerk staff to process during this hearing, if we have a hearing on August 8th, which we would need a full presentation on any citizen presented maps to include all the statistics and things that you do. So if you all could count backwards from that date and determine a date that you want to shut down the Esri tool for submission of maps. If that's July 31st, I would rather get closer to August 8th than further from it. So if you can determine what that date is, then we can just, at the end of the business today, instruct staff what day to decline public submission of maps. So people could still go around and play with moving a precinct and getting the statistics, but can no longer submit a map.
Yeah, I would just proffer that along with that, if we're still accepting public maps while you have the ability to make additional changes, at some point there needs to be some sort of cutoff in there as well. And so if we're having a July 27th meeting, for instance, I would suggest a cutoff there somewhere in that area, so then there's some finality with what you're working with. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
additional questions for me?
I don't believe so. Thank you. Item number 3.
Item 3, update on the creation of maps based on previous commission directions. Steve Schleicher, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
Good morning, Commissioner. Steve Schleicher, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. One thing is, if I could just go and just comment on the Esri tool, is it's very easy to operate, change, things like that. What I will do is, based on Commissioner Williams' direction, is we can sit there and take down the submit button. We could place a banner out there, or if somebody actually tries to submit, you get a warning, basically it's past the deadline, so we can actually work with the vendor on that, so we can take down the upload. So with that being said, but we will have the history of maps that will be in there. We will just take down the ability to upload and things like that. If I could, is taking a look at what the tasks that were assigned by you, the commission, on July 10th, is to display copies of all presented commission and public maps prior to the today's meeting, which we have already done, and we will also be placing them at Centennial Hall later today as well. Provide a summary of all presented commissioner and public maps. As you saw out there, there's an 11 by 17 summary of each and every map that's attached. Review and analyze submitted public maps. So we have basically put together a map that was assigned to us by a citizen named Landgraf. And we also had another one that was submitted by a citizen named Perez, but we were never assigned to work that map as of yet. And review and analyze changes from July 10th Redistricting Commission meeting to map 8.
Mr. Schleicher.
Yes.
Can I have you back up for 1 minute to the QR code slide number 2? So for those of you in the audience who would like to have at your fingertips the ability to look at all of the maps, you will find them at this QR code. Bless you. Okay.
Good to go.
Are we good? We got a couple more. Thank you.
Okay. So with the commission's permission, what I would like to do is honor your time, our citizens' time, is for us to go through the summary of 16 different maps that are also included in the PowerPoint presentation. They're also out there on attached to the maps outside. Is to save everybody about an hour and a half of time. Would you all agree to just go and review and analyze the submitted public maps and the options to map 8?
Is everyone good with that? Okay.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, so the first map that I want to go ahead and share with you that we analyzed this last week is a map that was provided by a citizen, and we've titled that the land graph map. So as you can see here, the overall range and deviation is 4.53%. The total precinct moves were 109. Total affected population, 170,195, which is 23.23% of our total population and 22.39% of our total affected voters. As we've done with every map, looking at first criteria, our population equality and Voter Right Act. District 1, we saw no variance of plus minus 3%. District 2, there was no variance of plus minus 3% for total population. District 3, we saw an increase of 4.2% for Hispanic or Latino and a reduction of 7.06% white Caucasian. District 4, no variance. District 5, we saw a decrease of 6.47% Hispanic or Latino, decrease of 3.17% Black, and an increase of 10.3% white Caucasian. Going into the voting age, racial ethnicity, District 1, no variance. District 2, no variance. District 3, we saw a decrease of 6.88% white Caucasian. District 4, there was no variance. District 5, we saw a decrease of 4.35% Hispanic or Latino and an 8.61% white Caucasian. So this map keeps most municipalities whole within Commissioner District except for the city of Colorado Springs. Communities of interest, as we've all been talking about, are 5 military installations, Falcon, Southeast Colorado Springs, Monument, Palmer Lake, and the Wildland Urban Interface. The districts are sufficiently compact where districts 1, 2, and 4 are underpopulated, target deviation to allow for future growth. Here's the second criteria, which is communities of interest and compactness. District 1, we're looking at 2,167 citizens below the deviation. District 2 is 1,576 citizens below the deviation. District 3 is 3,743 citizens above the deviation. District 4, 2,902 citizens below the deviation, and District 5 is 2,900 citizens above the deviation. As you can see here, historically what we've done for every map is we're looking at a plus or minus 3% deviation, and we did the same thing for political competitiveness. For U.S. President, we saw 4.61% Democrat increase. District 2, 4.01% increase for Republican. District 3, 3.75% increase Republican. District 4, 5.65% increase for Democrat. And District 5, 5.70 increase for Republican. And as you can sit there and see, is every race is a plus or minus is increase of 3% or higher for those individual races. There's also another map that I will talk to you after citizen comment that was submitted this last week that we want to go ahead and get your permission to work on. But the Perez map right now has not yet been approved by the redistricting committee for further analysis and may not meet all criteria at this point. But we'll talk about that after citizen comment. In addition, is we want to talk about changes to map 8, which we titled map 9. Based on our direction, currently the way the direction was, this map does not meet minimum required criteria. It's currently a working map that still needs precinct moves in order to be within the 5% population deviation. Currently, what map 9 is looking like, roughly, is Air Force Academies in District 1, Monument in District 3, Black Forest in District 1, the District 5 west boundary per our direction, I-25 precincts 112 and 119 to District 5. Results in District 5 population coming up to about 143,082. So we're pretty short on the District 5. Southeast community precincts, mostly in District 4. Fort Carson's in District 4, results in District 3 population of 138,800, so we're really, really shy on that commissioner district. Results in District 4 population, 164,990, so we're really, really high in District 4. And we also have Fountain in District 4. So are there any questions in regards to the land graph map and the working maps, which is now labeled map number 9?
Any questions? At this point, do you need, was that a question, Commissioner Williams? At this point, do you need direction or permission to analyze those two?
We could do that during the commission's direction, which is at the end after public comment.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner.
No questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purcell.
Thank you, Commission members. I need to apologize and correct the record for something that I said earlier. On my slides, I said that the deadline for members of the public to submit their maps was July 21st. That was incorrect. The date is actually July 24th. I misremembered that we moved it to the 24th to give people the weekend to do that. So I apologize for the error and thank the eagle-eyed citizen who pointed out the inconsistency.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I wanted to, so we've been presented a few more maps. Hopefully you had a chance when you walked in to take a look at some of these, but I wanted to remind those of you here today that we're all seeing these for the first time as well. And with that being said, I would like to get a quick show of hands for how many Commissioner District 5 residents we have to speak, and then, okay, great. And then others here to speak? Great. Is everybody okay with a 10-minute recess to take a look at the maps, digest them? I know you're all, we value your time. We're glad you're here. So I'm trying to figure out whether you would like the time to take a look at things that we're all just seeing for the first time. There are 3 new additional ones, or whether you'd like to proceed with the public comment. Any opinions up here? Okay, let's recess for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and so that will put us back here at, we will begin Commissioner District 5 at 9:40. We're in recess. All right. I will call this meeting of the Redistricting Commission back to order. Hopefully you've all had time to review and take a look at the maps that are proposed, particularly the ones that are new to us today. We are now on item number 4.
Item 4 is public comment. 4A, the Redistricting Commission will afford up to 3 minutes for County Commissioner District 5 residents for comments pertaining to 1, what communities of interest exist within the current County Commissioner District 5, and 2, comments pertaining to the political competitiveness of County Commissioner District 5, and or 3, other comments related to County Commissioner District 5 redistricting.
Thank you. And again, I want to emphasize that everyone will have a chance to speak. We're just going in order of the resident commissioners in District 5 today. I do believe, thank you. I do believe with that we have an online caller that is a resident of District 5. And I'd like to invite her to go first, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Bremer. May I defer to the next resident? I am boarding the bus and will be better suited to talk in a moment.
Jesse, are you able to repeat that? And let's turn the volume up in the room. Thank you.
May I defer to the next person? I am on the bus and will be better suited to speak in just a moment.
Okay. Did I hear that correctly, that someone else is better suited to speak on her point today? I can't.
I was just asking if I could go after another person as I am on the bus to be able to spend a minute.
Most certainly.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Next on our list, I have Jody Ritchie. Okay. And next, I have Jacqueline.
My name is Jacqueline Arvindara Unsueta, aka Jax, and I am a District 5 voter. I am one of the 24% of Latina and multiracial people who live in El Paso County, and I'm proud to point out that today my shirt says, "The future is Latina." The future is Indigenous. The future is Black. The future is Asian. The future is queer. It is beautifully multiracial. It is full of intersectional identities, and it is full of hope. That's why ultimately the map drawing process we're discussing today is so important to us in District 5, because it's supposed to be in the interest of a future that honors our democracy. We deserve a voting map that is fair and competitive for all of us in El Paso County. Sadly, there's been several red flags from the start of this process. Regardless of political affiliation, no one can deny that one party holding all county commission power for more than 50 years is problematic. So when this all-Republican commission chose to appoint itself to redraw the map, that was a red flag that could have easily been avoided by appointing a board that actually honors representation, such as including unaffiliated voters. In fact, more than 230,000 people are unaffiliated in El Paso County, which makes them the largest group of registered voters here. Then this board chose to begin these mandated public hearings uncomfortably close to the deadline codified by law. We also noted this board chose to schedule today's hearing, the only one out of 5, at a time when many of us in this part of District 5, our Southeast working class community of color, are on the clock. I am one of several people here today who sacrificed PTO hours to stand before you because we know how important this moment is for our community. So, like I said before, you can't blame us for thinking your talk is cheap. These dynamics lead us to wonder whether the final map will actually follow the law by being fair and competitive, or whether this process has simply been more distasteful political theater. So with this, the refrain heard from many of us throughout this entire process also bears repeating. All of Southeast Colorado Springs must be united in our new voting map as a community of interest. This means all 30 of the 45% or more majority-minority precincts we've identified and submitted to this commission must no longer be spread among 3 districts. However, uniting Southeast must not be used as an excuse to neglect competitiveness elsewhere. We believe other maps have been submitted that are more suitably following the Commission's mandated criteria as opposed to Map 8 recently discussed. This board must do better than that, especially when it's arguable you have a duty to pick a map that maximizes political competitiveness as long as no other standard is violated. Competitive maps get more people out to vote, and that's something we should all want for the future. Once again, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is about following the law and honoring democracy with our new voting map, free from the influence of partisan politics. So please enjoy the rest of your day in our beloved Southeast Colorado Springs and respect our votes. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I do have a sign-in sheet here, but not everyone put down which particular item number they're on. So what I'd like to do is ask anyone who is here to speak on item 4A, that means you're a resident of District 5, to just line up and queue up here rather than my having to try to determine which item you're here for. And with that, please do introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hello, my name's John Jarrell, local librarian. And one of the reasons why it's important for communities to have representation is, of course, the taxes. So everybody, whether they get representation or not, gets taxed. And so what ends up happening in this particular case is the Southeast ends up funding infrastructure projects out in the East that increases the value for landholders out there. And then after communities are built out there, they want to drive through our communities. So then you get something like the MLK bypass, so people can zip in as fast as they can over the Southeast to get past us and get to where they want to go downtown. And then we end up having grocery stores closed down because of that. So this actually happened with the MLK bypass. And now we're still dealing with these problems in the Southeast. This is one reason why we need representation. And so I'm going to ask you to unite all 30 of the precincts defined by Tony Exum into one district. These numbers, or the number 30 was also listed in the Gazette yesterday. Everybody's aware of this now. Tony Exum, the representative, and his 30 precincts. It's not something that you can claim later that you forgot or that was not important. And also, I've seen you say in the media, well, we'd love to do that, but if you make changes here, you have to make changes there. Yeah, we understand how it works. We have turned in a map, the Chukas map, that unites all of the Southeast and ironically fits your own criteria better than the maps that you are now proposing. We wouldn't have drawn it that way. We were trying to fit your criteria with that map. The Perez map actually does a better job of following the law than our map does. Your most recently proposed map actually moves more people, which was this big deal when you thought that it was going to help keep the Southeast from uniting. Our map actually moves fewer people than yours. And also this idea that 615, well, you know, it's partially it's in the unincorporated part, partially it's in the city. That's not a criteria by law to say, well, don't divide up a precinct. It's just not. So what am I supposed to do? Go back and tell people in these precincts that you're going to leave out? Like, I'm sorry. And this is just what I'd have to tell them honestly, right? I'd have to go back to them and I'd have to say, I'm sorry, but the commission had other ambitions that did not include the Southeast. That is why the commission was unable to unite you, because there are multiple maps turned in that unite all of Southeast Colorado Springs. The 30 precincts that are contiguous within the city limits that have 45% or greater non-white population. And I'm going to tell you, when I do go back and tell them this, I'm going to let them know what their options are moving forward. And I don't want to have to continue doing this. I'm not having fun. But if we have to, this process will continue after you've chosen a map if you do not unite all of the Southeast into one district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bremer.
Let's be respectful of all of our speakers and realize that there are lots of differing opinions in the room, and we'll just keep it to the issues and speak while listening to the others respectfully, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Candy Boyer. I am a proud resident of District 5. I live on the upper extreme of the district. My argument for the state redistricting was the same as what it is for this. I live on the west side of Powers. All of those precincts should stay in either District 5 or, if we have to be moved, up to District 1. We're not compatible with the other side of Powers. Our school districts are different. Our communities are different. And at this point, I hear all of the context in regard to keeping Southeast whole. I understand that, but at what cost to the rest of us? Because this involves all of us. All of us have to make adjustments and changes in our lives depending on what's given to us. And I really feel like we need to weigh everything to make these decisions. And so I am advocating for maps that do not move precincts from the west side of Powers to the east side of Powers. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes will begin after that.
Hi, Chauncey Johnson. I'm a resident of District 5. I just wanted to represent young people and not speak for young people, but I am a young person. And I would like to say that there are a lot of young people that are living in the Southeast today. The average age of people that are living in Colorado Springs are 35. If you choose to split the people up in the Southeast, you're defranchising young people. You're making sure that they don't have a vote, that they don't have a voice. And when you do that, you're exactly speaking into what we already believe. We already believe that this stuff is gerrymandered. We already believe that we have no shot. We already believe if we vote, our vote does not matter. And you guys doing this is doing the exact thing that we are thinking in our heads. And you guys speak to what we are thinking, and then that just means that we're just never going to vote again. And then you guys speak about how you guys want young people to come out and vote. You guys are being very hypocritical right now. Very hypocritical. What were you guys doing when you guys were young? Did you guys get the representation you guys wanted? Did you? Laginos, did you get the representation you wanted? It's serious, man. You know what I mean? Some of us young people, we work a 9 to 5. That's why we're not here on a fucking Monday. Sorry for my language, but it's true. I'm passionate. Sorry. It's true. Not everybody can sit up here and speak like this, and not everybody has a voice because they're intimidated because people like you decide to put a system in place so then that we can't vote and then our vote is defranchised. So if you guys want to keep continuing to do this mess, go ahead. But I will tell you, young people are tired of it, and we will recall every single one of you if it comes down to it. It's possible. It's a thing that can happen. And we're sick and tired of it because young people want to change. We've been asking for it for a long time, and we want it now. If you guys aren't willing to do that, then we'll see you guys during elections when you guys get special recalls and special elections.
Thank you. Let's please hold the applause and respect every single speaker in this room throughout their entire 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Stephanie Vigil, State Representative for House District 16. I represent Central Colorado Springs and the People's House. And I am here to speak today in favor of the Shookus map and ask you to unite communities of interest, particularly the Patty Jewett neighborhood and the Tri-Lakes area, and especially, as you've heard from so many others, Southeast Colorado Springs, comprised of the 30 precincts identified by Senator Exum. But I want to speak to you specifically about the Shookus maps proposal for this district, for District 5, combining that central corridor between Academy and Union Boulevard with Rustic Hills and the Southeast to form sort of like an urban core district. As we already have discussed, we cannot dilute the Black, Latino, and Hispanic vote any further. It is a violation of the Voting Rights Act. But there's more. Decades of exclusionary zoning in this city and many others for which, just for the record, that is a holdover of Jim Crow laws and redlining that we still do that, have generated rapid sprawl away from the city core and put us in a vicious cycle of addiction to outside capital and greenfield development. That artificially suppressed housing supply and car dependency have done a real number on our fair city. Now, we know a lot of this has been done at a municipal level, but obviously that demand for housing is going to persist despite the shortage. And we know that for 50 continuous years of unchecked single-party rule in this county, this commission has rubber-stamped those sprawling developments with abandon. That means the bulk of new housing in our community is farther and farther away from workplaces and other destinations that draw people to urban centers in the first place, and we are feeling the effects of it here in town. There is a seemingly bottomless need for car infrastructure, more lanes, wider lanes, high-speed roads, overpasses, largely so that more and more cars from outside the city can be accommodated on their way through it. Our neighborhoods are real places where real people live, work, and play, but they're constantly getting turned into little more than an obstacle for developers to overcome. And the thing is, these short-sighted development interests have always been well represented on this commission, and meaningful competition for a seat at the table has been blocked with every new map. The people passed amendments Y and Z because they're tired of politicians choosing their voters. And it's also why we passed House Bill 21-1047 to bring that standard of fairness to counties. Yet I saw in this weekend's paper that this commission feels it's impossible to meet that criteria. You didn't have to do this, though. You could have appointed an independent commission, like the statute suggests. You could have appointed an independent advisory committee. You chose to do neither of those things. So let us help you adopt the Shookus map. It checks off all the boxes. You get the population balance, you get the Voting Rights Act compliance, you get communities of interest, you even create a couple of competitive districts. It is not too late for this commission to earn back a little public trust. I know there's a lot of anger in the room. I'm not trying to match it, but you can earn a bit of that trust back by adopting a fair map. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes can begin. Actually, I think I'm going to ask that our person who called in earlier is available now. Are you okay if she proceeds? Okay, I think, Blake, we are ready to hear from Jesse.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. Please introduce yourself and you can have 3 minutes.
Of course, thank you. My name is Jessie Bustamante, and thank you for your flexibility with my comment this morning due to schedule constraints. I wanted to speak on behalf of the Southeast community. I've had the privilege of living here for about 5 years now, and what I've seen is heard from many others is that historically the voice of non-white residents is diluted and not kept together as a strong voting body. So my main concern for this redistricting process is that the 30 precincts identified are kept together in one voting district to have a unified voice and that what they're saying isn't diluted. I also want to speak a little bit to the process as Jax mentioned earlier, this is the only one of the 5 public hearings that is at 9 instead of 5:30, and that feels a little strange and a little targeted, all things considered. So I would hope that in future processes, or if it's not too late to schedule another hearing, that times be kept consistent going forward, or that more than one hearing be at a different time to truly allow for as many different perspectives as possible to enter the conversation. I would also speak favorably to the UCAS map that Stephanie spoke to just a moment ago. It is one of the only maps that keeps to the Southeast communities together in a single district, and it meets all of the criteria. So I would speak in favor of that map. Thank you for your time this morning, and I look forward to seeing how the process goes.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience there.
I don't know if I can follow some of those others. Wow. Well, good morning. My name is Gloria. No need to say my last name because you've seen me before. I've been part of this history, the history of this city since 1971, when I came here as a young Army bride from Southern Colorado. You see, I represent as the president club of 9 generations of Coloradans whose families are part of the first settlement of Southern Colorado. We are the second oldest family of Southern Colorado, and I have around 200 of my family members who live in District 5 or other districts. I've heard all the comments in the past and the present, and heard your comments regarding this issue of the redistrict since day one. I was shocked when you failed to invite the very community you represent to problem solve this challenge. You went with only employees of the city who may live here, but do they live in every district? Do they live in our district? Do they understand the heart, the soul, the commitments people make when they live in their neighborhoods and how they vote? Are we only numbers and statistics? Is the concern here only of a political party? How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered, and do you want your legacy to be remembered? Mr. Gonzalez is not representing us. Well, some of you are grandparents, maybe you're not, but I am. And I don't want my grandchildren, and I certainly don't want yours, to look at your legacy in this manner. I will not quote numbers, since others have done this. I've heard compliments regarding your efforts. So are you looking for a pat on the back? Why not look to be the set of commissioners who have made history in Colorado books, who voted for equal rights in their decision-making, and take this constituents' remarks about the mapping, like the Perez mapping. Voting is not far away, even if you believe you want to divide as well as Latinos, Hispanics, Chicano Native American society. We'll take that challenge if you so desire. Que no? We see that there's communities not only of Hispanos, but many minority races, and are of set incomes. We have a lot of set incomes in this area. Many generations of families who grew up in District 5. I will leave you this. Man is not God, nor is woman. When we play with people's lives, who work for their monies and families, you'll be met with fierce love and protection. Voting is a right and representation of whom we are. So always say, I'm worth $1 million in good advertisement. Ask Governor Polis, my compadre. Because then I'm worth $2 million in bad advertisement. So how do you want me to sing about your legacy? To the many generations of District 5, I will sing loud, and they say I sing pretty, and they say I sing loud. Have a blessed and a great day.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Vicki Tompkins, and I am also the Republican chair here in this county. I will say this, starting off, I was disappointed that this meeting was at 9 o'clock. I wish it could have been a different time. However, I'm here. One of the things that I'm really bothered by in a lot of the discussion here is it seems like everything that's been discussed so far, not by you, but by different people who are speaking, is we're trying to set up voting blocks. That's not what this is about. This is about doing things the right way. People are saying that you're trying to gerrymander. I don't agree with that, simply because gerrymandering is voting blocking. And I think you're trying not to do that, so I appreciate it. This should not be political, even though it is political. Let's just call it what it is. And I hear a lot of people talking about democracy. Well, I just need to remind everybody we are a constitutional republic, not a democracy. And with that said, that means some decisions have to be made that could be difficult, and it's not going to please everybody. I live in this district, I love my district, and I have worked hard in this district. However, that does not mean I get favoritism just because I'm Black. It does not mean I get favoritism just because another person may be white. We've got to get past that. Dr. Martin Luther King said to look at people's character and not the outside. And we keep talking about putting people in voting blocks by race. And I'm just disgusted by it, to be honest with you. I don't like segregation. We got away from segregation, and I refuse to go back into that. So with that said, I think with the type of tasks that you have been given, it is not easy. I can tell you what gerrymandering looks like. Look back in last year when we had to make the redistricting for the 10th year for the whole county, and that's gerrymandering. I saw some differences that should never have happened. And I think you guys are doing a good job. Do I agree with everything that you do? Of course not. I have my own individual thoughts and ideas, just like everybody else here. However, I do not agree with trying to put people in voting blocks. For what reason? To get your guy in. That's not how this works. And that type of attitude needs to be changed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Charles Johnson. I'm a young advocate for here in District 5, Southeast, growing up here for 23 years. I think it's a shame that here, as you guys as a council, want to take away our popular vote of the Southeast and in District 5. To know that we have the vote and the power of the people here to recall all of you guys, it's a shame that you guys want to sit here and take us away. We've lived too long and we sat under the bridge for too long, honestly. You guys have gave us no true representation. Cameron Brimmer, I'm truly sorry, but you're not the true representation of District 5. I think we need to do better on that. Longinos, I've seen you everywhere outside of this, and you know better. You teach in District 2. You substitute there with a lot of minority students. You should understand where they're coming from. You're trying to move the east side of Colorado Springs in closer to the southeast just to keep those Republicans in there to take our votes away. And the power of the people is always going to stand, and I think our generation is never going to give up, and the recall will be coming. And for all of you guys, and I think you guys should be ashamed of yourself what you guys are trying to do and try to keep our district together and just know that this generation is not afraid and we're always going to stand up.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other residents of District 5 wishing to speak here today? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm about to call for other residents of other districts, if that's... are there any more comments from residents of District 5 in the room and online? Okay, with that, item number 4B.
4B, the Redistricting Commission will afford up to 3 minutes for El Paso County residents who reside outside of County Commissioner District 5 for comments related to redistricting.
All right. If I could have you just kind of queue up just like the previous group did, and we will begin with the first person in line. Please introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Bremer and Honorable County Commissioners of El Paso County. My name is Nancy Henjum. I'm a resident of actually District 3, and I'm on the border of the Patty Jewett and Old North End neighborhoods. I'm here this morning simply to encourage you in your process. First of all, I am actually disappointed that you did not choose to follow the process of selecting an independent commission. However, you're certainly within the bounds to do that. So legally, no problem there. I think the opportunity, however, for you is that you have placed a little bit of a higher burden on yourselves to demonstrate your independent thinking, and that's what I'm trusting that you're going to do. And I am here simply to support the comments and the perspective that that the Southeast is a community of interest, and that those precincts be pulled together into one area, one voting district. So I do support that part of the proposal, and I'm also supportive of making Patty Jewett one entire neighborhood, as well as the Tri-Lakes. And I think this is done by the Chukas proposal, the Chukas map. I haven't had a chance to actually look at all the maps, so I'm not sure. I have not delved into every map in the way that you have. So I'll just leave it that if you would please prioritize from communities of interest, the Southeast as a community that is very much in need of representation, and also the Patty Jewett as one neighborhood, and the Tri-Lakes as communities of interest. Thank you very much for your service to our community, and thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Good morning. I'm Janice Frazier, and I'm a resident of Southeast Colorado Springs. I'm also active in my community. I serve as Vice President of the Harrison School District 2 Board of Education. However, my views today reflect mine as a citizen of Southeast Colorado Springs and not that of our entire school board. Additionally, I serve on the Law Enforcement Transparency and Advisory Commission, and I chair the Board of Directors for a local nonprofit. Southeast Colorado Springs is a strong, diverse, and vibrant neighborhood community. Our Southeast community consists of many successful local small businesses, many of which are minority-owned. Indeed, we have a unique identity. Today, I'm requesting the Commission give serious consideration to designate Southeast Colorado Springs as a community of interest under the definition of the law, and to draw the new district maps in a way that respects the integrity of our community. Southeast Colorado Springs deserves a greater level of focus from El Paso County government. As commissioners in this government, I perceive your very important role as providing key services to all residents. Public and mental health, family social services, economic development, and affordable housing affect all of our families. For too long, Southeast Colorado Springs has not received sufficient consideration from our government. I am particularly concerned about the current district maps, which appear to dilute the voting representation of our community. The current district maps divide Southeast Colorado Springs into 3 different districts. This has the practical effect of diluting the voting power of minority populations. I recommend that the Commission draw the new maps in a way that includes these precincts in the same county commission district. In addition, I also hope the Commission would include the boundaries of Harrison School District 2 within that county commission district. Harrison School District 2 is a key component of local government serving the Southeast. Aligning the county commission district with the school board district is in the best interest of our community. Thank you for your time and serious consideration to this important matter in our Southeast Colorado Springs area in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes can begin.
Okay, hi, I'm Zuri Horowitz. I'm a District 3 resident and people-centered planning advocate. This is not a bipartisan process. There are 5 votes. All of them are Republican. Being polite and ignoring what people are saying is not a fair process. Discourse requires people taking in what other people are saying. For example, bipartisanship would be when 38 Democrats and 16 Republicans voted for HB 21-1047, the law which was put in place to protect the redistricting at the county level from gerrymandering, which was modified due to lobbying by Republican Commissioner Vanderwerf. It became clear at the end of the last meeting that you're leaning towards Map 8. This map ignores the vast majority of comments made by residents regarding the distinct features of District 3, who gave very clear arguments that Monument does not share these characteristics. District 3 has unique needs and challenges. It is historic, walkable, and urban. With District 3's history of a vast tram network, it is uniquely positioned to have better transit and support greater density than other districts. What resources will this part of the city need in order to thrive? Will we change zoning? Will we allow greater density or request expanded transit? We need representation on the BOCC to address our concerns. These concerns are unique to District 3, and residents' concerns will be watered down by forcing Monument into this district. It will also water down the needs of Monument residents. I-25 is not a distinct emergency RETAC border. Monument does not have a common urban wildlife interface with District 3. It is segmented away from District 3 by Blodgett Open Space and the Air Force Academy. Monument's fire protection district extends deep into District 1, which would be further split if Monument was gerrymandered into District 3. El Paso County Wildland Fire Management covers all of El Paso County, so there's no concern that they wouldn't cover Monument during a wildfire. A common wildlife interface is a ruse to put Monument in District 3 in order to disempower the residents in District 3. If you choose to put Monument in District 3, it will be the second time the Board of County Commissioners has gerrymandered District 3 in 6 years. Look at the maps of Zucas, in particular, Perez, Williams, and Gonzales to a lesser extent. They unite all of Southeast Colorado Springs, they keep District 3 competitive, and have 2 competitive districts. Redistricting can be done fairly. There are 4 maps that are a great starting point. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes can begin.
Hi, I'm Amy Pascal, resident of District 3. I'd like to express my support for the map that was submitted by Mr. Carlos Perez on the website on July 12th. Mr. Perez's map keeps population in each district within the 5% as required, and is leaving the most growth capacity in districts 1, 2, and 4, where the community is growing. It keeps the communities of interest together that have been discussed in these meetings. All of the Southeast Colorado Springs precincts that have been named, and not just some of them. The Patty Jewett neighborhood is kept together. The entire wildland urban interface is in one district. Fort Carson is in the same district with Fountain and Widefield. Monument and the Tri-Lakes are in the same district as Black Forest. There are also 2 politically competitive districts in this map. I also support the Jucas map, as I have mentioned previously. It also keeps all the Southeast Colorado Springs precincts together, unlike any of the other maps that I have seen presented. I understand that making these maps is a difficult process. There are a lot of things to weigh. There's a lot of criteria, but it can be done. And we have 2 very good examples of maps that have met these criterias. So I'm hoping that you take these maps into consideration that were submitted by citizens who clearly did a lot of hard work in putting these maps together. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes can begin.
My name is Misha Smith, and these comments are my own. I currently reside in District 2, but I've lived in 5. I grew up in Widefield. I've lived on base, near it, and all over this great city of ours, as I'm essentially an El Paso County native. When we started this process, y'all asked us to assume good intentions, but the farce of refusing to acknowledge public input has proven that we shouldn't have. Additionally, you continually sit here and ask for our empathy for this really difficult task that y'all willingly took on, almost like you should have let experts run this from the start. When you asked for help from this brilliant community, we obliged, and you all but ignored it, choosing what we knew all along, that you'd never be fair to this county. While I know this will fall on your already deaf ears, I'll say my piece for myself and for the inevitable coming litigation if you refuse to satisfy the Voting Rights Act. As a dual Army brat who's now marrying into the military, I find it frustrating that many times in these meetings, the military community was prioritized over the minority-majority communities in El Paso County. Members of the military communities often choose not to be registered to vote in El Paso County, but are being prioritized over the people who have resided here for their whole lives. Other than diluting the power of people of color, I can't see any other reason for that overemphasis. I love what the military has given to my community, my family, and to my life, but I won't ignore that fact. Also, the multiple suggestions from the public that giving communities of color a voice by reuniting our gerrymandered communities is segregation or reverse gerrymandering, which was only ever made by white people except for today, were clearly attempts to further keep our voices muted. We have been fighting for 2 competitive seats that you all spoke of multiple times to have a chance for even a single commissioner who represents our interests. Also, I'd like to thank Jackie Armendariz-Wenta, who spoke up and said that just because you're a person of color does not mean that you're actually acting in our best interest or that you represent us. Another fact I won't ignore is that it's taken 6 weeks and 5 meetings for you all to acknowledge a map that was truly fair and considered all of the people of El Paso County. That map was submitted by Katie Chukas. Interestingly, last meeting you mentioned that you privately discussed it at some point, and that would violate the Sunshine Law. That also won't be forgotten in litigation. I'd also like to thank Ryan Parcell for being the only person who's responded to my questions, emails, or calls. I see him as my true county commissioner. While you all will squander away your chance to be impartial and fair, that's okay. We'll remember that, and we'll hold you accountable. You know that. What you might not know is that your children will also remember that, and that you will go down in history as keeping El Paso County racially gerrymandered. That's your legacy. That's your choice. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Misha Smith.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I've got a question for the lady. If she'd like to answer the question. I have a question if she'd like to answer the question.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Will you
Gonzalez.
actually listen to my answer?
Yep. Well,
Sure.
So you
Absolutely.
stated
Yes.
that the board is not listening to the public.
Mhm.
So of the maps that have been submitted in the last 2 meetings or 3 meetings, have none of the maps better concentrated the Southeast than we currently have?
So I guess my question is Katie Chukas's map that was submitted.
ma'am,
No, I would like to answer the question the way
You're
that
not
I would
okay.
like to. Okay, so you don't care about my answer?
Please go forward, but I'd like you to answer the question.
I'd like to answer the way I'd like to answer things. So Katie Chukas's map that was submitted weeks ago that y'all have ignored was a great representation that was fair, and y'all have ignored it. But ironically, the Republican map that was submitted by Lois Landgraf is out there and printed. I think that speaks volumes. So when y'all are ready to be fair, let me know. Thanks so much.
So, ma'am, do any of the maps? Okay, so all of them, I just like to state for the record, to my knowledge, every map that's been submitted for discussions have greatly better concentrated the Southeast, have combined Monument, which was one of the things that was brought up by the public, and combined Patty Jewett. So, and that's all I say, so that people are getting accurate information from the public. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes can begin.
I'm Catherine Gale. I'm in Commissioner Williams' district, District 1. I want to start with a quote from Ted Lasso. Doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. When you took the meeting before all of us and you were considering whether to take this incredible responsibility on yourselves, I said the most important thing in a country, in a county that follows the rule of law is to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. I'd like to remind you all of that mandate. I was the senior human rights advisor for USAID in Haiti. I did a lot of work on transparency, voter rights, voter turnout, and election, sunshine laws, all of the things that have been done vaguely in accordance with the law, I'm not saying you've broken any laws, would not fly by the US government when we are evaluating other nations' electoral processes. I was also in Egypt for the revolution and the first free and fair democratic elections in Egypt. I was also in Panama after Operation Just Cause when I was an election observer of their first free and fair elections. I am asking you to remember your sworn oath of representing the constituents of this county. As John Jarrett said earlier, people in Southeast pay taxes. We had a revolution about taxation without representation. We're talking about communities of interest. The focus has been on the communities of interest, people of color, people of certain socioeconomic classes. But I also would like to go back to Zuri's comment about why are we putting Monument into District 3. District 3 is the wildlife urban interface. The primary concern there is access and egress for fires, its development in accordance to sane plans. Monument fits in our neighborhood, the United Monument, not two sides of Monument. I also would like you to consider the rural part of El Paso County, because although I live in a beige house in a development when there are maybe 7 models of houses in varying shades of beige, we're also very involved in 4-H, and that's done in El Paso County. Those people are very concerned with the mad growth that's happening. Many of them are on well water, and when you have all this growth, it affects the ability of water to go into the groundwater, it affects the water cycle, and it affects their ability to draw water. So a community of interest is beyond people of color. Yes, absolutely. That was the focus of the Voting Rights Act, but it's also District 3, Wildlife Urban Interface. It's also Black Forest and rural areas. Please, please take your sworn duties seriously. Do the right thing.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and you can have your 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I'm Liz Rosenbaum. I lived in the southeast part of town when we first moved here due to the military. I lived there for 3 years, and now I've lived in the Fountain Valley communities for 20 years. I've gotten 6 state laws passed banning PFAS chemicals. In the state of Colorado, that's also made a huge impact nationally. City County Commissioners should not be the board for redistricting. We've said it 100 times, yet here you are. Why? Here's my personal grievances. Your Republican team does not honor Democrat voices in the community. Case in point, during COVID, you even banned your own team member, Coroner Dr. Leon Kelly, from telling us how not to die from COVID. But then when he ran for office, you loved him again. In County Commissioner District 4, there was a stolen third term by Dennis Heisey. For 6 years, stocking of fish was done in the Willow Springs Pond after the community had repeatedly said that those ponds were poisoned. County Commissioner Lojinos Gonzalez never had the local health department test for fish. We had School of Mines do it, and now they're drained by natural causes. Sure. I've personally been targeted by the Republicans. My address was randomly changed in 2022. How convenient. So then I wasn't getting ballots. It affected me getting a renewed driver's license, and I had to get a paid post office box so I could get my mail-in ballots. Don't tell me that was accidental, because then when I inquired to Stephen Schleicher, who went from county assessor to now county clerk and recorder, an investigation was never done, so I still view that as on purpose. And how do I know? It was county assessor's office. The Fountain Postmaster General looked into it as to what happened to my address, which had always been the same for 20 years. Also, when I come up and speak, anytime something is not liked, couple things happen. The mic turns off, the video feed turns off, and cops threaten to arrest me. That happened today to Chauncey Johnson when a young Black man comes up and he's frustrated with his lack of concern for his voice. The cops showed up at the door. So, I took pictures. I've been noticing. Passions and frustrations from voters draw the cops into the room. Or they're just watching from the other side of the glass right now. They're watching me. Fountain Valley needs to be maintained together. Southeast Colorado Springs need to be maintained together. Stop setting this up as the sacrifice zone of the area. We need hospitals. We need clean and safe drinking water. You're failing.
Thank you for your comments today.
I like how you look at me, Stan. Nice.
Ma'am, can we have the next citizen come forward, please? Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Yeah, my name is Catherine Chukas. I'm a District 3 resident. Thank you for reading my written comments. I'm not planning on covering those, but if you have questions about any of my written comments over the past few weeks, I'm happy to answer. My two main points for this morning really are about data and process. First, about data. I want to say in the PowerPoint presentation from Clerk Schleicher today is you don't have the data about the Chukas map. If you go to slide 18 of that PowerPoint presentation, there's a number of bullet points there. But I want to make it clear is you have never seen any written comments about communities of interest about that map. You have never seen any written comments on compactness. You have never seen any written comments on total affected voters. You've never seen those. So when you look at slide 23 about the land graph map today, and you go home and try to compare it to what you've learned about the Chukas map on compactness or communities of interest, you don't have that data. It's missing. It was not presented on June 21st, and I asked for it in written comments on July 5th, and it still has not been shared. So again, when you're looking at the Chukas map and the land graph map, you don't have something like slide 23. Also on data, again, I'm looking for this commission to talk about how they're going to define competitiveness. Clerk Schleicher said it's about that plus or minus 3% deviation from current. I disagree. I think you want plus or minus 3% deviation in voting. Take the Democratic vote versus the Republican vote. See if that's within plus or minus 3%. That was not presented to you on slide 25 of the land graph map or the land graph presentation today. I think you want deviation, not deviation from current. My other points on process is really about Mr. Perez's maps submitted today. I think it's worthy of a thorough evaluation. I also wonder if the commission will be accepting new maps on Monday, July 24th, up until 11:59 p.m., or maybe it's just 4:59 p.m. It's really not clear. I'd like that to be precise. I'd also ask, as I did earlier in the process, to see announcements at least 2 weeks in advance about meeting dates and times. You have some potential holds. Are those firm? Are they not firm? I'd also request that agendas be available at least 2 business days in advance. I'm not sure how it is for your children right now, but for mine, it's coming up on the end of the summer. It's getting really busy for me. And I need to know what's going on at these meetings so that I can plan the exact hours that I can be here in person or listening online. And I also want to make sure that these meeting dates and times don't put conflicts for the staff members and the publics between things which are important to them and their families, like first day of school milestones or back to school nights. And so those things should try to be avoided. So making all this stuff early is best. My last comment is really to remember, as redistricting commissioners, your focus is on residents. Politicians and election departments care about voters, but redistricting commissions need to care about residents, whether there are 730,000 residents here, and residents are 9 years old and they're 99 years old. Residents who are 9 years old care about county resources. They care about bathrooms at county parks. They care about playgrounds. Residents who are 99 years old or their caregivers worry about the administration of county programs for health care or food security. Obviously, 9-year-olds don't vote, and 99-year-olds may not vote. Again, what you care about for this redistricting commission is residents. Please use that language throughout. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Melvin Lee is my name. I'm a proud resident of Security Wirefield. I won't flail any insults, but I'm mindful of a scripture that seems to be the depiction of what I'm observing here. Matthew chapter 7 says, "You'll know the tree by the fruit that it bears." This commission, y'all should be representing the people. And I wonder if your interests aligns with theirs. This redistricting plan to disenfranchise or dissect or dilute the Southeast community of interest, whose idea was that? Does it really represent the needs of the voting power or the voices of that community? I think not. The 30 precincts proposed by Tony Exum is why I'm here. I endorse the Chukas map and the Perez map because of those, from my understanding, as I'm just now getting involved, represents the peoples and their voice. I will ask you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes can begin.
Thank you. My name is Shelley Roars. I am a District 3 resident and spokesperson for the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak region, but I am here today as a member of District 3. First, thank you for listening and thank you for your time today. Some of you seem to have a more open mind than others, so we do appreciate that. And thank you to all of you. Appreciate all of you being here and being active and engaged citizens, because without you, you would not hold your elected representatives accountable. So thank you for that. And for those of you online as well. My representative, Commissioner Vanderwerf, said earlier, we are listening and appreciate everyone's input. I'm a bit cynical and have trouble believing this when you've had the opportunity to listen when you appointed yourselves to this commission. You chose to keep the power in your hands instead of giving it to your constituents by appointing an independent commission and an independent advisory board. As you've heard from multiple people, this still weighs on us. The only thing I'm going to ask you today, actually encourage you today, is to do the exact opposite of what you want to do. Just the exact opposite. Don't listen to yourselves. Don't pay attention to your maps out there. I can't even imagine that why our representatives are putting in their own maps rather than listening to the other constituents that are out here. So again, I'm just going to ask you to do the exact opposite of what you would want to do, to be impartial and fair for El Paso County residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes can begin.
Hello, I'm Chuck Montoya. I'm the chair of Colorado Latinos Vote, and I also live in District 5. The thing I think I want to ask is, please be fair in looking at the maps. I think the fact that one party has held the supermajority for 40 years is very telling in El Paso County. The fact that the commission appointed itself to redistrict is also telling. Be fair. I think, as Shelley said, do opposite of what you really want to do and listen to the people. The people have spoken. It's time you start listening. And I sincerely hope that you can take the time to look at the two of the maps, the Perez map and the Chucas map, and keep these districts together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes can begin.
Hi, my name is, excuse me. Hi, my name is Chrisanne Young, and I reside in District 3. First, I want to say I agree with Vicki Tompkins that the redistricting should not be about providing voting blocks. It should be about having commissioners in each district that will look at the needs of those specific districts. I do support the monument inclusion in the, I can't remember which maps, but I do support that. And also just east of I-25 in the Woodmore area. The reason I do is that all these areas that border the mountains, they do have special needs when it does come to fire, to protecting wildlife, and to protecting expansion. I was around during Waldo Canyon fire. I live in the northwest area town. It was horrifying to try to get out of the northwest area where Vindicator and Centennial meet. It was horrifying. And a lot of people just sat in their cars not knowing if they were going to get out or not. So I heard comments earlier that, you know, District 1 Fire Department would support those communities. I'm sure they would, but the problem is access of getting out of that area, I believe, in event of fire. Not that the fire departments would not come in and help that area. I also want to say that I do appreciate this body taking on this task. I feel that being commissioners, you guys have the experience, you have to be able to look at all kinds of different things, our resources, the areas of town, expansion, who is, you know, having housing permits, who's, wanting to build and how they're wanting to build. And that does affect our community more than actually voting blocks, I believe. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes can begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having this meeting. My name is June Waller, and I'm in District 5. I can't believe I've sat here this long. I broke my watch. Okay. And we haven't heard the word homelessness. In District 5, we seem to have a lot of people who are homeless. And that's where most people used to come when they couldn't afford rents anyplace else, District 5. I don't believe that there's anything we can do for the homeless population if we keep cutting the health budget. The South End, there's no hospital, there's no decent medical care that I know of, but the fact that there's no hospital in the South End past Memorial, you should be thinking of that. I understand the role of the city. I understand the role of the city, but you have no means of saying that's not my concern. The homeless is the concern of all of us because they impact all of us. When you stay someplace and you leave all your garbage behind, it impacts us. So you commissioners that keep voting to reduce the budget of the health department, you need to start thinking. Maybe, I'm not thinking right. But I'm saying at 87, I'm like this because I don't feel safe. But again, that's not your fault. That's somebody else's. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward, state your name, and your 3 minutes can begin. While she's making her way forward, is there anyone online? I think we're trying to confirm that. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes can begin.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Thompson. I'm the mayor of the city of Fountain. I was absolutely thrilled to arrive here today and see that as one of your assignments, you listened to one of the comments that I made at one of the redistricting meetings to keep Fountain Security, Hanover, and the city of Fountain together. And I really, really appreciate it because there was one map that split us up into 2 and possibly 3 commissioner districts. And I think I stated some reasons why I think it's very important for us to stay together as a community of interest. And I won't reiterate those and take everyone's time. I would like to say I do appreciate you having a morning meeting today. As someone who had a family member that worked nights and would have been unavailable to attend any of the county commissioner meetings at night because that person would have been going to work, they would have been able to attend a morning meeting. So I think having a variety of meetings has really reached a lot of people to try to address the different work schedules that we have in this community and that I think you all are aware of, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I came today to really address a specific question that I heard Commissioner Geithner ask at the last meeting, and that was why, if Fort Carson was removed from the district that we're in, why that was such a big deal. And I think we have a unique thing in the city of Fountain and goes outside of our boundaries. Is a few years ago, I was commiserating. My husband owns a couple businesses in town, and we were commiserating that you can never not be new. You just always have to continually be introducing yourself. And having been in business for over 20 years, had never hit that situation before to get established in a community. And our utility director we had at that time, Curtis Mitchell, made a statement that a third of our utility customers, which we do have areas outside of the city of Fountain, roll over, a third of them every 5 years. That means that we have a community continually in transition, and we love it. I think it keeps our community young. I think it keeps us new and fresh, but it also makes it a little bit more difficult to become established in your community. I believe keeping us as a community of interest together and having one commissioner for that area keeps that uniqueness and the ability to address that a little bit better. And I think Commissioner Gonzalez has done a fantastic job representing our community. I really appreciate it. Even if you're from the Air Force, we'll take you. We'll keep you down there. But you've done a terrific job of representing us. And I wanted to say that I really appreciate that. I believe there's been some comments made that really kind of made it sound like you weren't representing people well. And you're at everything. You are at everything I turn around. I think I try to hit everything. I think the joke is he's here and I can only stay a half an hour because I have 3 more things to go do today. But that's true. He's doing a fantastic job representing our community. I appreciate that. I did not know you at all before you were elected. We've worked really hard to establish a relationship. You've been open and taking phone calls whenever we had something going on in our community that was a need. You've answered the most bizarre questions. Why isn't the trash being emptied? Why is this, lake draining? Why this and that? And I really appreciate that. So thank you very much for representing us well.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens wishing to speak today? Okay. Item 4, please come forward, state your name, and your 3 minutes can begin.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Adriana Cuva. I am from South America originally, and I love this country, firstly and most. As a military wife and moving all over the country, I like to speak up because I think just like everybody else said, whether you're a minority, whatever it is, I think we're all Americans. That's first and most of all. I know when people have said that when we talk, when we are not being represented at all levels. Well, since moving here to Colorado, I also don't feel represented at the state level. I make several trips up there. We go to speak up when a bill's coming forward, and guess what? We're silenced up there. So nothing for us as a minority at the state level. There is no voice for us as conservatives, as a Hispanic conservative woman. I don't know if everybody understands that when the redistricting took place last year for the House and the Senate level, we had an independent commission and who chose to do what they wanted. So there was no voice for us, at least. I don't know if everybody understands that. And as far as the microphone going out, you guys know I've been at the county commissioner several times for other issues, and my mic has gone out after my 3 minutes. And several of our friends have had security also come forward and move them out. So it's not a conservative, liberal. It's, if you go past there's rules and laws. If you go past your 3 minutes, your mic will go silenced, and that's just the way it is. But I thank you for, listening to us. And I think the maps that didn't deviate so much, that's what I stand for. As a military wife, I like seeing where I'm located, and I don't want to be put. I saw one of the last maps being pushed into District 4, and I don't feel that County Commissioner 4. I'm part of that. I'd like to stay in County Commissioner 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens wishing to speak? Please introduce yourself, and you'll have your 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Deetra Duncan, Fountain City Council. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself and the community in which I serve. I do want to appreciate you listening to me the last time we spoke. There have been a lot of comments saying that you are considering not removing Fountain Fort Carson from Fort Carson, as we have a school that's in our district that's Fountain Fort Carson. So that's why I always say Fountain Fort Carson, because it's interchangeable. It's our community, it's in which we learn. Again, as I stated, it is which we have they are our neighbors. They are people that we shop with. There are people that we do a lot of things. Our kids go to school together. We play on sports together. We have 4-H together on Fort Carson, and that's the only place that we have for 4-H is on Fort Carson. So I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate all the time that you have spent listening to the communities in which you serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, hearing no more residents, we are on item 4C.
Item 4C, the Redistricting Commission will afford up to 3 minutes for non-El Paso County residents for comments related to redistricting.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak who is not a resident of El Paso County? Okay, and none online? Okay, hearing none, we are on item number 5.
Item 5, Redistricting Commission members publicly deliberate regarding any individual ideas and/or present any individual maps to other redistricting members and to members of the public.
Okay. Do we have any comments? Who would like to kick it off today? Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I can go first. So I, first of all, would like to give direction to have our clerk and recorder staff provide a full analysis on the citizen submitted maps. I think we have the Chucas map, the Perez map, and the Landgraf map.
I think that's those are great ideas. Let's have you restate those under item number 6 too, if you don't mind. Any other commentary or discussion?
No, the other thing I wanted to make sure was we be crystal clear on that July 24th date of when the ESRI tool will no longer be submitted by. That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. That was one of my comments too, is if we could make sure before we leave today that we have clarification on the time of that so that citizens are aware of that. I have several things that are just kind of general commentary as we move forward. You know, we've had so many different comments, many of them competing interest. I think that's what this process is about, is hearing all those competing interests and trying to sort that out. As I've said before, we have several communities who have connections to in various different ways, and it would not be possible to keep them all together, and this is a difficult task. I'm going to restate something that I know is not going to be popular for our Fountain folks, but I'm going to say again, when we moved Fountain, we pulled a chunk out of District 2, and District 2 also has distinct communities of interest with its school district. We pulled out a part of 49. So in this case, we are balancing the need to move those things around for population. Unfortunately, places like Falcon and that eastern area do not have its separate city council that represents an entire area, so they won't have those representatives to come to these meetings and state that. They have in many cases, only a county commissioner. And so I think it's important to remember that though we have not heard those comments at as great a level as those Fountain comments, there is a repercussion to those folks in District 2 when we do that. I don't know how we resolve that yet. I'm sensitive to the concerns about Fountain and Fort Carson as well. But I want to point that out because that is something that we are going to have to deal with, and I want to make sure that the residents that are in that District 2 area that are being would be pulled out are also considered because as I said, there's a school district consideration there. There are other areas. So for example, that southern part of the eastern side of Powers, which is the Claremont Ranch area, that is an unincorporated area. They are served by Cherokee Metro District Water, which is also connected to many of the services in Falcon. So I'm going to continue to say, I do not believe that taking out, and those are roughly identified by the 400 precinct numbers, that if we carve out whether the top or the bottom of that, that there is also significant and significance to that. So when we move to one side, we're going to have to balance, and we're going to have to make choices if we do that, on which one of those communities of interest we're going to choose. And that's a very tough situation. I'm going to continue to advocate for those Eastern residents, again, because I think they do not have as much representation. And I do believe that that's incredibly important. I don't have a decision. I just know that's going to continually be on my mind as we move forward on that. I have a couple of additional thoughts. Some of the maps I've paid close attention to. We heard from a school board member today. We would love to, I think, be able to keep all of those school districts together, though I think, again, that's just going to be continuing a challenge. There are some maps, though, that I'm going to point out that I am concerned because it's come up several times as meeting all of our needs. So I want to point out the Perez map that was talked about today. It does exactly that. It carves off that bottom piece of the D49 district, which again includes some of those precincts that are in the unincorporated area that, as I said, are served by that Cherokee Water District. So though I am open to seeing that fully looked at, I'm going to point out that as a big concern there. As well as Peyton being completely taken separately from Falcon. That is certainly, we've talked about Falcon as a community of interest, and we haven't been super clear, but again, I want to make it super clear that Falcon and Peyton are definitely connected. They share a zip code. Neither one of them is a proper town or city, but they are very close. In fact, the only post office that serves the entire Falcon community is in Peyton, just as a kind of a unique characteristic there. So that's one thing that I mentioned, one thing that I noticed. Another map, and I've already kind of addressed the land graph map. Again, I have that concern about that top portion. Again, I understand that the interest there is to protect Fountain Fort Carson, but I have to state again that other interest is that we're carving off that front of D49. So if we're going to say Fountain has to stay connected with its school district, how do we justify pulling apart another school district? We're going to have to discuss that and continue to make a decision. The Chukas map I mentioned similarly does the same thing. There's also been several of the maps that continue to keep Black Forest separated. This is a tough one because the school districts actually meet in Black Forest, 3 different school districts. So we have to determine there, do we keep Black Forest together and separate and pull off little pieces of each one of those school districts? I'm open again to continuing discussion. In that case, I would have to say I kind of think Black Forest is a stronger community of interest and would be less detrimental than some of the other cases. But again, these are really tough for me to discuss, as knowing this community pretty well. I think one of the benefits of having commissioners as the redistricting commission in this case is that I do have a deep knowledge of those areas and have heard a lot over the last couple years. So I do continue to think that we need to be really thoughtful about that Black Forest area, and it is a very difficult decision. And there's several maps where you end up having a part of D38, again characterized by those 300 numbers, broken off. We're going to have to deal with that in regards to the town of Monument being one of the things that's prioritized statutorily. So I just want to kind of point out some of the problems that I see that we're going to continue to have to solve. And obviously, I don't believe we're going to solve every single one of them on any map, but those are just considerations that I have. And let me just check my note here and make sure I hit on everything. Oh, I did want to address, one of the comments was about zoning in Colorado Springs and how important this board would be related to that. I wanted to point out that we don't do zoning in Colorado Springs. We only do zoning and land use at the BOCC level for unincorporated areas. So just some clarification on that. It's one of the reasons why I do think keeping together some of those unincorporated areas that I've talked about before makes some sense. And I think that covers kind of all my general comments for today.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I appreciate all the comments and from all the citizens that have spoken today. I count 24 that testified. I actually took notes on every single one. And when we get to item 6, there will be several things that I think I'd like to recommend. I'm going to mention them now so that the other commissioners can contemplate those for possibly agreeing to do those. I think the first one, and this just speaks a little bit to some of my questions earlier, is at what point do we continue to accept maps, and at what point do we stop accepting maps from the public? And one of the citizens that testified made a recommendation of up to 11:59 on the 24th of July, and I'll just make the point that sounds reasonable to me. So I would ask my fellow commissioners to deliberate over that, consider that idea. I think there was a mention from Commissioner Williams and a statement made earlier about maybe doing the analysis on the Perez map. And when we get to item 6, I will recommend that we do that. I think that's a good idea. I think it's great that we're talking about some comments here about trying to get school districts whole to one degree or another, but just want to re-mention to everybody, El Paso County has 17 school districts. It's really, really hard to try to figure out how to address that when you have 5 districts that you're trying to fit 17 school districts into. So to the extent that we could maybe do some work that will accommodate that to one degree or another, that's possible, but it is physically impossible to do that in its entirety with regard to school districts. I'd like to make another comment. There were some citizen comments that were made about District 3 is a walkable district, and that was really a comment about those that live in the urban areas of District 3. In some of those areas, they are very walkable. They're tourist areas. They're easy to walk back and forth. I just want to make the point that the Board of County Commissioners through PPACG has been supporting public transit. So we have actually been working in that. It is not something the El Paso County does in a direct way, but in our representation to the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, we have been working on and supporting public transit really throughout the more densely populated areas. So I just want the citizens to know that we actually do work that, but we work it through PPACG. With regard to also D3, just keep in mind this comment about a walkable district. District 3 includes Pikes Peak. It's over 14,000 feet high. It has an enormous variety of terrain, District 3. And so there's an enormous amount of rural area also in District 3. I have citizens that have some difficult challenges to include fire risk issues that live up on the Rampart Range. And so I just, for those of you that live in the urban areas of District 3, I just ask you to be sensitive to all of the citizens of District 3. It's a wide variety of issues and challenges that we deal with. And this is actually common throughout El Paso County because we have enormous differences of areas from really pretty intense urban areas out to really remote areas, and areas that have water and other areas that don't, and areas of high altitude and areas that are not. It's a wide variety. I appreciate the continued comments from several citizens about, their concern about whether or not we selected an independent commission to do the redistricting. But as I've said in a couple of other meetings, I'm going to continue to reiterate this. That group of so-called experts created House District 14, which has a finger that goes almost all the way to Manitou Springs, goes all the way north to Black Forest Road, and actually goes to areas north of the north gate of the Air Force Academy. Now, I don't know how you can come away with the concept that they provided expertise in a redistricting that produced House District 14. And then they also did that fun little thing with Green Mountain Falls that combined two counties that forces both parties, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, to go through a completely different set of statutes. That's very, very complicated because a couple of voters there have multi-county jurisdiction issues. And that was done by this group of so-called experts from the Independent Commission. So let's just be fair. Everybody, I will make the point, I think the Independent Commission was just trying to do the best they could. They were not experts at it. They made mistakes. And I think it's fair for all of us to just think about this in the same way. We're all going to do the best we can. And you know, I think it's appropriate and fair to say that all of you are here and you're providing input. You may or may not agree, but I am with the firm belief that this board is listening to you. I know that I am. Now, I think I heard another comment that some citizens have sent us correspondence directly, and they were concerned about our not responding to your comments with regard to redistricting. I'd just like to reiterate that we are not permitted to do that by statute. The only way we can actually talk to you is in a public forum like this hearing. So it's important for you to know that we cannot do that. We would be violating law if we did that. And I think that's a good law, because what that means is those conversations have to be done in a public forum so that others can hear them. That's about openness and transparency. I think I heard another comment from a citizen that the SUCAS map was not being considered, but I can tell you I have right in front of me, out of a whole list of maps, I have that map in front of me. So it is being considered. And I think that's important to realize that. Now, there was another comment, and I appreciate all the comments that all the citizens have made. But this was a comment about whatever you think you ought to do the opposite. Well, I have an interest in combining the Southeast. I don't think you want me to do the opposite there. So let's just call that for what it is. Ms. Waller, I appreciate your comment about hospitals. So we've got a couple of commissioners here that sit on the El Paso County Board of Health, and I sit on the State Board of Health. I think it'd be great to have a conversation with you. It has to be something different from this redistricting thing, because it's kind of really a different issue. But let's have that conversation. Let's go see what can be done about that. I think that's a good thing. And I also appreciate, even though we were criticized a little bit for this, I appreciate that at least some of these meetings are during the day, because some people have night shift and can't come. The other great thing is that regardless of what your availability is to come to a meeting, you've been able, and many of you have done this, you can go to any one of these redistricting meetings. Whatever works for you. Even if it's not your district, you still get a chance to speak. And so what we're doing by having evening meetings, morning meetings, and meetings around the district is trying to do the best we can to give everybody a chance to commute a little less far and also to go to meetings at different times. And I think that's thoughtful. I really do. And to one other comment, and I'm just going to defend Commissioner Gonzalez here, and this is with regard to the PFOS-PFOA issue down in Fountain. I think it's important for the citizens to know at every single National Association of Counties meeting and in many, many other meetings, I have watched Commissioner Gonzalez fight for the citizens there, dealing with the PFOS-PFOA issue, trying to get federal money, and there was a measure of success in doing that. He was part of the team as well that got the Air Force to do a lot of investing in the PFOS-PFOA issue down in the Southeast. And he has been fighting to ensure that we have, some environmental rights with regard to citizens in the water. I see one person shaking their head no, and they don't believe it, and you have every right to believe that, to not believe that. Ma'am. And so I'm telling you that there's another side to this story, and that other side is very important.
Let's keep comments to a minimum, please. Commissioner.
And and Commissioner Gonzalez has been fighting for the citizens on several issues, but I can tell you with no question he's been doing that on the PFOA issue. And many that work in that arena know that to be true. Okay, so those are my comments. And then I'll be making a series of recommendations when we get to item number 6, and I've mentioned them already. Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple things. The public input, I think we heard several, honestly, we heard it at various meetings and again today, and some, I think, not accurate information on the public input on communities of interest. I believe all of the maps that have been developed over the last several meetings, I think there's a new one that was submitted by a public, not by any commissioners or changes to any of those, have better consolidated Southeast Colorado Springs than is current, has put together the communities of interest of Monument together, have put together Patty Jewett together. And so so people have come up and said that's not accurate. All of them have done that. Different methods. They may not be the overall maps that people currently like, but we're still drafting them. But especially when people have come up and said diluting the Southeast vote, every map, I believe, has better consolidated Southeast Colorado Springs. So those statements are not accurate. And again, we can tweak the maps. We can do a better job on the maps. Those statements are not accurate. I'll just put that out there. And we are trying to do what we can, and we are doing that in the various maps. And let's work on the maps that work best for our community, because we want to listen to our community, and we are doing that. That being said, I think the one map that was brought up today by the public, if that wants to get further, it may get further consideration. I would recommend that if the Landgraf map is going to get some more traction by anybody, perhaps, that it does, that's the one map that I don't think consolidates Southeast Colorado Springs as much as the other maps. And so I would recommend to the person who submitted that, that if you perhaps tweaking that so that it better consolidates Southeast Colorado Springs. Map 8 revisions, so I was a little disappointed. It looks like they're still in a draft, but it doesn't look like, based on my direction last week, that we try to get Fountain back into that map. An option of that. It doesn't look like the math is working out right now. That does concern me, because I still do prefer to have, or want to have, Fountain together in that map, or not necessarily in that map, in District 4. I do feel that the community of interest there should be together. I do think there's a little bit difference between the school board issue and military bases community, because there's 17 school districts versus just 5 bases. And so I just hope we can find some way to get back Fort Carson into the District 4. Other than that, I believe in terms of maps, I heard some additional comments. I continue to be proud to be a strong voice for District 4 and very proud to be a strong advocate, one of the best and strongest advocates, I believe, for Southeast Colorado Springs. That's why we got the WIC Center in Southeast Colorado Springs, to help our medical issues with our younger families, women and youth and infants. It's why I recommend it, and we've got the public health building south in the north side of Fountain, which gives better access to the north side of Fountain, Security Whitefield, and yes, Southeast Colorado Springs. It's why people have already mentioned they see me everywhere, because I need us to be a voice there in Southeast Colorado Springs. It's why I have brought up the fact that there are hospitals missing in the south side of Colorado Springs and the county. And I've said that before. Now, those are private institutions. Those are not county hospitals. Those are hospitals, UC Health. There's other mechanisms. I've made those comments, and everybody has heard me say, yes, as it relates to Colorado Springs, we need more work and effort in Southeast Colorado Springs. I continue to do that. I will continue to fight for our community, because that's what I do. I fight for residents, and I will continue to fight for you. So I appreciate that, and and I appreciate the fact that I think this is a very difficult job, and I think that we, with your help, are going to get to a good outcome on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. I just want to follow up. We're gonna continue to battle this one out a little bit. Yes, it's a school district, but let's not forget Peterson and Schriever are also, they have a surrounding community where those folks live. It's just not a designated city with a board that can come and speak to you today. But in particular, that Powers corridor right there above where Peterson, right there in the bottom part of those 400s, where that school district is, that is a huge number of those kids who have parents stationed at Peterson live in that area as well, and D49 is particularly sensitive to that. So again, not to minimize the importance of Fountain Port Carson, I just want to provide a balance to that, and we're going to be in the same situation in Falcon and those areas. It's one of the reasons why I'm going to keep bringing that up. Most of my neighbors, I moved to the state of Colorado with my husband being active duty at Fort Carson, ironically, and we chose Falcon as our home. Falcon has so many military residents from all of the different locations. Fort Carson is one of them, but Peterson and Schriever are kind of a primary one, and then the same thing in that Powers corridor where we have a ton of military that lives there. And again, just because it's not a designated city doesn't mean that there is not also a strong correlation to that specific school district and those military installations a little bit similar to the other one. So again, not to take anything or diminish any of the importance of Fountain Port Carson, but I want to provide the balance to that conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Geithner. And some final comments from me. I have said it before that if we are going to consolidate Southeast Colorado Springs and keep that together as a community of interest, there are really only two ways to do that. You move the northern border of District 5 currently south, or you move the southern border north and balance the population that way. I did want to point out that one of the things I said in the last meeting probably oversimplified our process. I'm really hopeful that in the coming weeks, we can really get to a point where we're narrowing down and eliminating some options. But perhaps I oversimplified it in giving the optometry analogy of which is better, 1 or 2, which is better, 2 or 3, which is better, 3 or 4. That is probably an overly simplistic view of the complexity, because there are many factors that we're all considering that I don't think any of us have actually seen all together in one map. And so that's what this next section of the agenda is for, clear direction, and trying to hone in on what, based on what we've heard, what are the elements to be incorporated as we go forward. The other thing I wanted to I did want to point out that while the number of maps does seem to be just ever increasing, there are a lot of ways to do to really there are a lot of options in front of us, and I think that the ones that have been presented over the last few weeks, the citizen ones included, are getting us closer to being able to actually have a consolidation of those things that are important, that should be considered, and that statutorily we are required to do. So I think we're getting closer, and we're getting closer because of the input of all of our citizens. And I know that I, for one, am taking very seriously all of it. And so I look forward to honing in on that. I hope we are almost to a point where that can be done with very clear direction. And with that, let's move on to item number 6.
Item number 6, redistricting commission members provide consensus direction to staff.
So, commissioners, if I can make a couple suggestions and also a couple statements. One of which is I want to follow back to one of the citizens that was concerned about mailing address. There's only 3 ways you could change your mailing address per statute. That is by the owner, the national change of address through a postmaster, or through a deed. So the concern that I have is if somebody did not receive a ballot in the 2022 election, I'm going to investigate that. So I'm going to pull all the historical records from the assessor as far as the NCOA from the postmaster, because if the postmaster says the change of address is this, then it automatically updates the assessor's site. I will also pull all the deeds in regards to that, but what I want to do is if somebody did not get a ballot, I want to fully investigate that, and I will sit there and provide that to the citizen as well. In addition to that is looking at the Zucas map. Is we brought this before you on June 21st at Mountain View Academy. It was slide 71 through 81, and I will share is that part of that is there was a slide where we sat there and talked about communities of interest and compactness. That was not included in that presentation, so we will definitely include that as we sit there and take a look at things. But what I plan on doing is taking a dive into the Zucas map, basically going further into the land graph map. And the Perez map, as I'm hearing folks in the community or here that are present giving an endorsement to the Perez map, we have yet to even take a look at that. That has yet to be assigned to look at the 3 different criteria for the Perez map. The other things that I want to share is going back to our very first meeting is the foundation of where we are today. The challenges you all have before you is, as Commissioner Vanderwerth alluded to, El Paso County is the most unique county in the state of Colorado. We have 17 school districts where most metro counties only have 1. We got 13 different municipalities, from Fountain all the way up to Town of Monument, Palmer Lake. Most within the state of Colorado only have 1 municipality, 1 city, or 1 town. We also have 22 different fire protection districts. And when we're sitting here talking about the natural disasters that have occurred here in El Paso County, and we only reference the Waldo Canyon fire and the Black Forest fire, what about the floods in Manitou? What about the landslides in Skyway and Upper Broadmoor? These are things why we considerably talk about the wildland-urban interface, and it's also Colorado State University that are the ones that changed the map. This is a map that is provided by Colorado State University. These are, when you talk about the wildland-urban interface as well, there are constant laws being made in reference to the WUI by our state legislature. And as I shared several weeks ago, one of the recent laws that was passed by our state legislature is now if you are building on the west side of I-25, it doesn't matter if it's from New Mexico line all the way up to the Wyoming line, is those builders have to basically adhere to different code that is now costing them to $20,000 to $30,000 more than if you go across Powers. They're within the WUI, but these are things that have to always be considered. So those are just things I wanted to share with you all. Commission, this is something brand new to all of us, 1047. To me, El Paso County is the only county that is following this bill to the T. I have no complaints. I actually think this process is going very, very well. And I compliment you guys, especially with things that we're sitting here talking about with all the different fire districts, school districts, municipalities. Everybody's got their own opinion, but I will sit there and applaud our citizens and you as a commission that we are doing absolutely everything to the T, which is hard for me, especially when people want to reach out to me and talk to me about this, and I can't. I'm a very customer service oriented individual, and that's something that's just very difficult for me, but I understand the bill. So I applaud you and I applaud the community, and I look forward to moving forward because hopefully we can start narrowing down the maps and start focusing in. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Gonzalez has a question.
No.
Nope.
Okay. Yes, I think we're going to take a quick recess for 5 minutes. We will be back and going on direction before 11:30.
are calling this July 17th meeting of the Redistricting Commission back to order. We are on item number 6. I believe that Mr. Schleicher had made some clarifying and opening statements on item number 6, and I was about to bring it back up to commissioners. I also wanted to reiterate that yes, we did receive data and breakdown on the Zucas map earlier this month, but that wasn't complete. And what I heard you say was that you would do those other categories of analysis as well and bring those back.
So, Commissioner, there's only one analysis that is not in print form, and that is of criteria number 2 as far as compactness. So I will put that together.
It would be very helpful, especially with this many options on the table, if it's apples to apples every time. That's, yes, Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, and one of my directions too would be on the maps that you have outside, you've posted a legal sheet of all of the data summarized. If you could post that in the folder on the Google Drive, that would be helpful.
In fact, that will be done here in the next hour.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go any further with specific direction, I think I'll let Commissioner Williams start it off after I make one more comment. There are many things I like. I'm just going to bring this one up because it's been discussed much today, and I think that perhaps your direction is going to pertain to the working map that is currently named the Perez map. There are many things I like about this, but the one thing that I will say as a representative of District 5 and knowing what types of issues and really just knowing the district, the other side of powers does not feel at all connected to me on that. And so that is my one piece that I will say. I don't think that works for the residents of Commissioner 5, no matter where you draw those northern and southern boundary lines. Once you cross powers, you are also in a different community of interest. And as Commissioner Geithner has said, I believe it's also maybe a school district boundary or close to it. But I, again, as we go through this process, I want to be more intent on what are the major things that we've said are important, keeping Southeast together one way or another. And while this map does that, it also pulls apart another piece that doesn't necessarily work, I think, for representation here. So with that, Commissioner Williams.
Yes, so my instruction was specific to making sure we have the full data on Landgraf, Perez, and the Zucas map. The second one was to make July 24th at 11:59 p.m. the last day to submit maps on the Esri tool. And I wouldn't mind before the next meeting we have, which is August 8th, could we get the analysis like 24 hours beforehand so that we can be able to make the motions there we need to make? And those are mine. I will, leave. I know Commissioner Vanderwerf had a number of recommendations too.
If I may, Commissioner, as well, is if I could have a little bit of leeway, I and my staff, because right now we're probably going to get a couple more citizen maps. So with the leeway from the commission is, if you allow, once they're submitted, we can go ahead and work those up and bring those forward to you already. So we're not waiting for our next meeting.
I think that's appropriate. Again, as long as they're all worked up with the same criteria, same parameters every time.
Yep.
I'm sorry, so you would receive a map, work it up, and then would you post it in the citizen comments, say the workup is here in the Google Drive, so that people could know that it's been posted? Or is that how it will work?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Commissioner Geithner, I think, has a recommendation. So,
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. So I do have a recommendation. You know, I know we want to keep as many maps open and on the table so citizens can comment and get those new maps coming in. But, you know, to Commissioner Brummer's point, as we've gone along, there are so many maps, and we will need to start getting to a place where they're a more manageable number for us to compare. I would like to make the recommendation that we direct staff, especially because this board has all been very clear that we do see the Southeast as a very important area that needs to be brought together better than the existing lines, that we would go ahead and direct staff that if there are maps that do not do that, or I would even say cannot reasonably within a precinct move or two get there, that we would go ahead and maybe eliminate those maps and defining, you know, the Southeast and, you know, all of those precincts that we've been talking about considerably. I think, you know, maybe I would defer to Mr. Schleicher and, you know, in consultation with the attorney, especially in meeting that, the Voter Rights Act requirements on that, so that, you know, you are getting that information, but to the best of our ability to eliminate maps that are not keeping that community of interest at the forefront.
And Madam Chair, some comments.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you. So I think I support that recommendation from Commissioner Geithner. I think it might be worthwhile for this board to deliberate over what specific maps that would then entail. I've actually looked at them, and I'm going to make a recommendation here, and then you all can contemplate it. But I think it means now when I'm going to recommend the maps that we no longer consider in the future, it's maps that strictly have the Southeast in 2 or more districts. And that's the only thing I'm thinking about when I'm making this recommendation. I do want to make that some of these maps that I will recommend, they have some other really good qualities in them as well, but I think we can continue to consider those. And several of those other good qualities are actually represented in some of the other maps anyway. So this is what I'm recommending here, that we no longer consider is Map A. And if you look at the Southeast, you'll just see from these maps that the Southeast is 2 or more districts. Map A, Map B, Map C, Map D. And then there was a Map 2, which was the minimal precinct moves, and that just didn't consider this at all. And then one that I happen to like, but possibly also Map E. Map E. And again, several other good ideas in all of these maps that I think we can take into account in the remaining maps. In some cases, some of those have already been taken into account, but that's my proposal to the other commissioners. And then you can make recommendations if you think that's appropriate or inappropriate or whatever.
And Commissioner Vanderwerf, to clarify, you did want to remove Map E as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But there may be one here that one or more of the commissioners want to keep in for deliberations, and then we just do some kind of an adjustment to that particular map. And the only reason why I bring it up is I think it's just about being explicitly clear.
If we are looking at keeping the population of Southeast together, this has several precincts that are Southeast and in different districts.
Yeah, I'm just going to defer back to, it's very difficult for me to see here, which is why I kind of want to give a little bit of leeway, maybe on Map E at least. It seems like it is not as divided as some of the other ones. So if it looks like there would be a few precinct moves that would get us substantially to compliance with the Voting Rights Act, then I would say let's keep it in, just to give us a little bit of leeway moving down the road, that there could still be a path, especially since you mentioned that this is one overall that you do appreciate.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Geithner. I appreciate that. I don't have any objection to that at all. Keeping MAP E as a consideration, because it's possible MAP E with some adjustments could, get us to where we're trying to go. So that's fine. So I think what that means on the table is MAP A, B, C, D, and 2 are the ones remaining.
Are the ones remaining as candidates for removal?
As candidates for removal. Yes, please.
I would be in agreement with that.
Madam Chair, I too would be in agreement with that. And again, I think it's another indication of how we are listening to the public, especially as it relates to Southeast Colorado Springs. Thank you.
Okay. We have eliminated a few choices. Any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you. I did have some other recommendations, but I will just simply state that I think Commissioner Williams did also make the recommendation, so I'll just say that I concur with those. One of those is accepting maps from the public up to 11:59 on 24 July. And looks like from head nods to my left that there's no objection to that. And then the other one was to do that analysis on Perez, but I think that's already been decided, but that was another comment that I had. And I think those are all of my recommendations. So thank you.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. I just wanted to, as Commissioner Brummer has mentioned a couple of times, having an apples to apples comparison, especially as we whittle down these maps. I know we had the one sheet outside, which I think is helpful. But one of the things that I noticed is sometimes in our presentation, we have gotten political competitiveness broken out as a deviation and sometimes as overall results for a race. I noticed those have just the deviation. I did also notice that when you clicked on the QR code, however, there is a small, and I'm trying to bring it up here, but there is a small graphic that breaks out the actual results of the election and not just the deviation, which I think is also helpful. If we could get all of that together on that sheet, so just that added component, I think that would be helpful because it's difficult maybe for the public and also sometimes for those of us, you don't remember every single piece, to see it all on a single page so you can understand what that deviation actually means.
Absolutely, Commissioner. In fact, what we have done differently from June 21st is a number of folks complained about the time. So we basically just started summarizing the maps and we put all of the information, the research information in the PowerPoint. So it's there for all citizens to see and things like that. But moving forward, we will go into grave detail on each one of these maps. So we won't just do a summary, we'll go detail by detail because there are some of these maps that will actually change a race.
Mm-hmm. Any further direction? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a question for Commissioner Williams. You originally had a map. Have you been working on any other iterations of that for consideration? Okay, just wanted to clarify. Okay.
So I know that the original map that I had proposed was to go back and include all the Tri-Lakes region together. Have not worked on any other iterations of that. I could look at moving some precincts around to see if we could make the Southeast more compact on it. But that was, I haven't made any more adjustments to that, so.
Okay, I'd be interested in seeing, I know you had some, if you do work on a map, looking at yours, and then also, I believe Ms. Landgraf will be looking at some changes. I would be just interested to see on hers if she is able to get a few more, again, including more of the Southeast together. I would like to see more. I'm not going to give any direction to a resident, but I'm very interested in looking at her revisions moving forward. Thank you.
Can we clarify what the process for that would be? I mean, is that a whole, if she submits another map that's kind of just tweaking the one that she started with, What's the public process piece of that? What direction do you need from us to allow us to continue to move forward, considering all the options? And again, apples to apples, same with every citizen submitted map. What kind of direction do you need to not stall work until you come back to us?
So, Commissioner, you all have already given me that permission. Is any citizens' maps that are posted or uploaded with the permission you just gave, is I'm good to go ahead and review all of them. So if there's another land graph map that is submitted with some changes, we will go ahead and review that, analyze it, and bring that forth to you guys as a version 2.
Great. Thank you. Any further direction? Again, in keeping consistent with providing that analysis on all the maps, I think we should do that. But I'm very concerned about that other side of Powers Boulevard on the Perez map. So I don't know what the population, I don't have the tool open in front of me, so my guess is that would mean a major shift to this particular map. And I don't know if that means it's worth analyzing, but I do think we should be fair and do it the same across the board for all the citizen maps. So I'm a little bit conflicted in knowing that that's causing more work in, quite frankly, a map I'm not entirely interested in. It has some good elements, but...
One thing I also want to share with the commission is, unknowingly, you have done an amazing job. When you sit there and you look at our major military installations, and the reason why a commissioner district specific to a military installation is important is our PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. Because how the federal government goes about coming up with a PILT is they look at the commissioner district, and then your county assessor, Mr. Flucher, is the one that's got to determine what the actual value of that is if it were built out. So say Air Force Academy was built out like Peregrine, then you come up with that actual value, and that is what the federal government pays on. But it does come down to commissioner district and the like-sized properties. So you all unknowingly have done a great job trying to keep those in specific commissioner districts. Thank you.
Commissioner Geithner.
I'm just going to agree with Commissioner Bremer here that if this commission decides that we want to move forward with analyzing every submitted map regardless, I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of that. But it is very clear to me that this Perez map has very big concerns with, as I mentioned, dividing Peyton from Falcon, really slashing out that part of that eastern part past, Powers. That's all very significant to me in terms of the communities of interest that exist from, kind of that eastern Powers area, and then kind of swooping around to the bottom there. So again, if this commission feels strongly on that, I have no problem with that. But yes, for the sake of time too, I just want to put that out there that I do not believe that this map meets enough communities of interest to be competitive with the other maps that we have.
Just in a brief review, some of the concerns I see here, there's a total of 156 precinct moves. We have yet to sit there and analyze, as I shared, in regards to the total population that is going to be affected. Although the criteria is something that we have not looked at, but moving 156 precincts, that is going to be a very large total population, a very large voting age population, and there are going to be a lot of voters that are going to be disenfranchised where they're not going to be able to vote in an upcoming commissioner election, or they're going to have to wait a number of years, or voters that just voted are going to be able to vote again here very soon. So that is something, although it's not a criteria, but we're going to have a lot of starved and, basically super voters.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Just a moment.
Unless Mr. Parcell.
Sorry, something that Commissioner Geithner was saying spurred a thought. If you're giving direction to staff to run citizen maps, unless anybody else feels otherwise, I don't see any reason why you couldn't put certain parameters. Like if a citizen submits a map where District 5 crosses Powers Boulevard, we won't run the numbers on that. Or anybody submits a map that splits up southeast Colorado Springs into more than one district, we won't run the numbers on that. If there's any other guardrails of communities of interest that you want preserved, then that way too, from an administrative standpoint, if staff sees a map come through that doesn't meet those guardrails, we can have somebody else who's not one of the protected staff or insulated staff members reach out to that citizen and say, we can accept your map as is. It doesn't meet the threshold for consideration unless it meets these criteria, and give them the opportunity to resubmit.
I'm very much liking that idea based on the fact that we eliminated several maps today on that criteria that we've been very clear about. So I think if we could put those parameters on, still leave the process very open and analyzing everything that makes sense. But I think this board has been fairly clear and keep Southeast together and recognize where major changes in communities of interest are happening. And I believe that Powers corridor is one of those.
Yeah, I'm open to that as well. I did want to just clarify, because we have had and Southeast is a little subject to interpretation. I would like to tie it to the Voter Rights Act. So we would not want to see anything reviewed that we did not feel or that we felt was problematic in meeting the criteria in the Voter Rights Act. And then that way we know Southeast is a part of that conversation, but that we're in compliance with the law, not just subject to interpretation.
Great point. Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you. And I'll concur with that as well. When we kind of initially came up with the comment about just go ahead and go forward with the analysis of any new maps, the potential challenge in there is, what if you get 25 maps? So I think we do have to have some criteria around that, which was just mentioned. You have a sense of the direction, I think, from the board here, and let's say if any maps are submitted and they violate those things, then they still need to be brought to us so we can see them, but we don't necessarily do you wouldn't necessarily do analysis on it. So I'll just make that point. With regard to the Perez map, Commissioner Geithner, I will concur with your point that there's a lot of things on there that I think violate some important things to us. Having said that, I would like to just see the numbers on the Perez map and see where it goes. But for something like the Perez map to ultimately end up being used, I think the points you made would have to be addressed. And so therein lies some challenges with that. For those that submitted the Perez map, maybe they could continue to work on it and try to address some of those challenges. And then I have one other, it's perhaps almost trivial, but it's one little minor point. It was something actually stated by Commissioner Bremer at the last meeting, but on map 8, this is what's called the Bremer-Geithner map. And there was the consideration of precinct 112 and 119, which are presently in District 3, but if I recall right, were moved to District 5. If there's any way we could just maybe do a slight adjustment on map 8 and just put 12 and 19 back into 3 and then just rerun the numbers. It might be really easy to do because it's just 2 precincts.
Yes, and that is because that I-25 boundary line actually splits those 2 precincts. But again, much in the same way that I think, District 5 community of interest doesn't, I think keeping between I-25 and Powers
Yeah,
probably
to that point, well, Commissioner Bremer, you did recommend last meeting to move those back to 3.
I did.
Yeah, and I just would like to see that. And we're going to have that in a couple of places all the way up and, anywhere in the county. There are a few other precincts, like, for example, Air Force Academy. Not sure if it'll ultimately be moved, but there's a little bit of land on the east side of I-25, because I-25 is not necessarily the direct line for precincts. So you get these little challenges all the way up and down the highway corridor. But I think just a minor adjustment on map 8, and I'd be interested in seeing what that does to the numbers.
So Commissioner Vanderwerth, Commissioner Bremer, if you just go a little bit south, there's precinct 169 that is split by I-25. Would you just like to go ahead and just keep that one in Commissioner District 5?
I believe so, and I think that I don't have the list right in front of me right this minute, but I believe that is one of the ones that has been specifically requested as part of Southeast.
Yeah, I'd say if there's no objection to the other commissioners, just moving 112 and 119, and then we can reconsider 169 later if needed. But I'd say just leave it alone for the moment, just those two in my mind. It'll change the numbers a little bit, but I just think it'd be good to see those numbers.
Commissioner Williams.
My comment is, as I'm thumbing through these maps, I probably still like map 8 the best as far as putting the Southeast together as a whole, even if it means that I have to give up some of my Tri-Lakes region and Monument. So that might even end up putting mine more on a back burner, map number 4. So just in looking at how well map 8 works with all of the 400 precincts over where Commissioner Geithner wants them, and Black Forest together, and then the Southeast together, and then making some minor adjustments there with the precincts Commissioner Vanderwerf mentioned, that might be a pretty good map.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. And again, I do have issues with not having Fountain in the district. And I forgot to mention earlier, District 4 on this map would go from having 3 bases, and I'm not trying to get all the military bases, but then it goes to 0 military bases. And I believe Fountain Security Wide Field in the southeast of Colorado Springs is greatly represented by veterans. Thanks.
And Madam Chair.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yeah. Map 8, I would agree, doesn't fully address that challenge either. So I don't know what to do about that yet. I think there is something to be said that's pretty logical about Carson and Fountain in a district. But I come back to my point for the moment, just those 2 precincts and minor change, and let's see what it looks like. And then we still, if we're going to pursue 8 further, we got to try to figure out these other issues for District 4.
So commissioners, if I may, once we finish up here, we're going to head down to Centennial Hall and display maps. With your permission, can we go ahead and exclude the ones you all just voted on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask Commissioner Gonzalez, just like that we have put these other parameters on maps, are you wanting to put another parameter on of eliminating anything that doesn't have Fountain Fort Carson together?
I don't know if that's
We
necessary.
don't have to right now,
but I mean, I would not oppose any offshoots to what's currently existing to restrict those efforts. But if a new map, I would not be happy with those maps in terms of what I believe the criteria, but I don't want to necessarily put a restrictive caveat at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just clarifying. Okay. Do you have the direction? Okay.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Any other comments from staff first? Okay. And any other comments from commissioners? Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you all.